told his tale.
The story of Frankenstein is filled with wonders. The very fact that an 18-year-old Mary Shelley wrote arguably the best sci-fi horror ever during a random writing competition organized by the icons of literature, including Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, and John Polidori, makes this story an enchanting piece. Mary's Gothic novel took the world by storm, and the tale of Victor Frankenstein and his monster has been passed on from one generation to another like a treasured heirloom. Soon, Frankenstein was not just restricted to printed pages, and hundreds of adaptations now feature Frankenstein's monster, but when Guillermo del Toro stepped up to show the world his rendition, he kinda blew our minds. Del Toro portrayed Frankenstein's monster in the most human and heartfelt way possible, exploring the psychological and emotional layers that were buried deep in an otherwise monstrous narrative. The director left no stone unturned to make his movie a masterpiece. Frankenstein personified cinema. Jacob Elordi delivered an outstanding performance as the monster, and the rest of the cast, including Oscar Isaac and Mia Goth, were just cherries on top. Turns out, this film, which Del Toro has been mentally crafting for over 2 decades, has several behind-the-scenes details which will only make you appreciate the genius filmmaker that he is and acknowledge what a gem of a film Frankenstein truly was. Before we get into the list, we do have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
I'll tell you mine.
How long did Del Toro take to make Frankenstein? Ideally, it took the director and the cast and crew about 120 days, but for Del Toro, he's been dreaming of making this film his entire life. When asked about the conception of the story, the Academy Award-winning director said that he had been envisioning this film for over 50 years. Frankenstein isn't just a story for him, it's his religion. Del Toro stated that he treated it like his Bible ever since he first saw the film at age 7. Even at that tender age, he figured out what Frankenstein was truly about: the resurrection of the flesh, immaculate conception, stigmata, and ecstasy. Sure, he didn't know the jargon back then, but Guillermo identified with it and realized that's theology for him. He read about the godfather of all monsters at age 11 and figured that the movie didn't really answer all the intricate, urgent questions that the novel posed, and ever since, Del Toro has claimed that he would make a Frankenstein movie one day. As we said, he and some members from the final team had been working on this project on and off for over 20 years before the grand premiere of the movie in 2025. The story behind building the monster's birthplace. Before Del Toro could bring the creature he'd been holding on to forever to life, he needed a fitting home. His team, including production designer Tamara Deverell, found a deserted water tower, the Wallace Tower, in Ayr, Scotland, which served as the designer's primary inspiration. It served as the perfect place to build Victor Frankenstein's laboratory and was recreated as a 55-meter-high set at the Markham Agricultural Fairgrounds outside of Toronto, Canada. The lab interiors, which were created across 8 different sets, were fitted with marble floors, a custom-built spiral marble staircase, and a circular window. It took Deverell about 5 months to achieve the perfect design for the space, and she used a 3D rendering to visualize every tiny detail and create the laboratory that would be worthy of Frankenstein's darkness and brilliance. The work was finished with stone and tile, along with the green patina that indicated that even the brightest copper could be corroded. Now, choosing the right shade of green was another issue. The crew played out various palettes of green, and ultimately, Deverell went with the one that depicted the right amount of decay. Yet another interesting element in the film was the use of circular motifs. Del Toro conspicuously employed the shape to represent the cycle of life and tried to incorporate it as many times as he could. Everything in the movie was handcrafted to perfection, from the costumes to the sets, and Del Toro and company even went out to the frozen lakes north of Toronto and North Bay to film some scenes. For the tower's exterior shots, the director filmed it in Scotland, along with a few shots in the Rocky Mountains in Alberta, Canada, and they used VFX to get the desired result. Building the ship. The movie opens in a remote Arctic region where an expedition ship, the Horizont, has run into ice and become stuck. This is where we're introduced to Victor, who's now injured and brought on board by the ship's captain, with the creature chasing him. Interestingly, Del Toro had his designer build the whole goddamn ship, which took 3,178 labor days. Unbelievable. Deverell made the full-sized ship on a backlot in Toronto and also created the surrounding ice. The reason for choosing a parking lot was to have the ice and snow clear closer to the studio in case there was a change in weather conditions. So, while the crew lost their parking spaces, Tamara built one of the most amazing and significant pieces of prop in the movie. Interestingly, Tamara used to be a shipbuilder as one of her summer jobs and always had a fascination with vessels. She referred to the Franklin expedition and the Terror and Erebus ships and experimented a lot with the ice. Tamara recalled how she visited maritime museums in Halifax, in Glasgow, and at London's Royal Museum's Greenwich, where she found the 19th century British clipper Cutty Sark. She even connected with historians and with people who built models of Arctic exploration ships. The team then built the base structure out of metal and sandwiched plexiglass before carving styrofoam to get the clear ice look. They then covered the ship in wax, real snow, and some fake snow, and put the ship on a huge mechanical gimbal so the creature could actually move it. All the equipment's in the tower. Once Frankenstein's tower was built, it was equally important to have authentic 19th century equipment inside, and yes, the crew even made sure those were authentic. They went to the Hunterian Museum at the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons in London, and Tamara took countless pictures of the real tools and Evelyn tables that displayed human tissue. Some of the set props, like the copper pots, were then carefully crafted by the team, while other pieces were rented from antique stores in the UK and shipped to studio sets in North America. Not just the set detailing and decorations, even the coffin used to show Victor's mother's dead body was not just built out of imagination. It was modeled after a real-life Fisk metallic burial case used in the 19th century, made of cast iron that was shaped to protect bodies and transport them over distances. According to several fans, this design was replicated to show the coffin as both a vessel for preservation and a symbol of the ghastly connection between science and grieving. How was the dialogue created? While adapting Mary Shelley's groundbreaking tale, Del Toro knew that even when she wrote in her time, it wasn't a period piece. It was a modern novel, and he felt that the film should align with that instead of being some pastel-colored historical piece. Del Toro thus tried to put the idea into a fresh, youthful context and tweaked the dialogue accordingly. He did retain much of Shelley's original prose, but included bits of himself in the script. Since English was his second language, he developed a keen sensitivity to the rhythm and melody of the language. Del Toro believed that the book carried a type of tempo and tried to replicate it in the movie's speech without making it sound too archaic. The director even considered Frankenstein in relation to another novel, The Adventures of Pinocchio by Carlo Collodi, and by employing the father-son dynamic from these two, he created his very own version of Frankenstein. Elordi's commitment. Playing the creature in Frankenstein is undoubtedly the biggest feather in Jacob Elordi's hat, but the role was extremely demanding. From the moment he understood Del Toro's faith in him, Jacob did everything possible to do justice to the character, which required immense dedication and patience. For starters, Jacob had to sit quietly in the dressing table chair every day for about 10 to 11 hours. Stylist Mike Hill praised Elordi for not even complaining once when all the prosthetics and makeup were applied. Sometimes, Jacob would even arrive at the makeup trailer at 10 p.m. and spend the night there to not miss the early call times. Del Toro claimed that Elordi was like Superman, working 20-hour days without cribbing once or saying that he was tired or hungry. He even wore brown contacts to make one of his eyes look bigger. Hill mentioned that they had to reapply the full body design about 20 times during the entire filming schedule, and Elordi would use that time to immerse himself in the character's mind and soul. He even studied Japanese Budo dance, which involves gritty themes and undignified poses, and practiced Mongolian throat singing to accurately deliver the monster's mannerisms and gestures. Jacob considered his transformation into the creature as a metamorphosing experience, not just on set, but in his life as well. Victor Frankenstein was depicted keeping rock stars and music artists in mind. Del Toro wanted to portray an unprecedented form of Victor Frankenstein, not just as someone who's a mad scientist. He wanted the movie to be as grand and luscious as possible, like how old-school Hollywood was, and vehemently refrained from using any AI or simulation. In fact, he not only wanted the movie to have a larger-than-life outlook, but even made sure to turn the shooting into an exciting and glorious process. Coming to the creation of Victor Frankenstein, Del Toro realized that Oscar Isaac was already thrilled about cutting and mixing the various parts, and he thought, why not make it a show for him? He told Isaac to feel the joy of creation and treat it like a concert. The director and actor then took the concert part very seriously, and Del Toro stated that the movie was basically about showing Victor in the middle of two shows. One, where he behaves like a rock star in the middle of a medical class and moves flamboyantly like Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. The other stage for Victor was when he was making the creature. He arranged the papers like a partiture and then waltzed his way around the room. Del Toro told Isaac to imagine himself as Rick Wakeman with 5 synthesizers around sound were like Leonard Bernstein conducting an orchestra. Isaac explained how the character of Victor was supposed to be at peace amidst the disarray of reanimating a corpse and shared that he was on an adrenaline rush, feeling like a hyper kid. The creature was supposed to be played by a different actor. While it's now almost impossible to picture anyone other than Jacob Elordi as Frankenstein's monster, it turns out he wasn't always the first choice for the role. Surprisingly, Spider-Man himself, Andrew Garfield, was Del Toro's original pick to bring the creature to life. Garfield had even been officially cast, and the makeup team spent 9 months developing his appearance as the creature. However, he had to drop out of the project at the very last moment due to scheduling conflicts. When Elordi was cast, the team only had a few weeks to redesign and adapt the prosthetics to fit Elordi's taller, uniquely slender physique. Elordi's height of 6'5" required an entirely different approach to the creature's look before filming could begin. Mike Hill stated, "What attracted me to him was his gangliness and his wrists. It was this looseness." Garfield, on the other hand, said that it was disappointing for him to leave the movie, but he was happy to see Jacob gaining experience and enjoying his time on the job. Mia Goth's personal life shaped Del Toro's choice of casting her in 2 roles. For those who are unaware, Mia Goth plays the roles of both Victor Frankenstein's mother, Claire, and his love interest, Elizabeth Lavenza, but Del Toro didn't always plan on that. As it just so happened, during an early conversation with Mia Goth, the director learned about her experiences as a new mother, and that's when the idea struck him. He told Mia that he hadn't completely figured out how Elizabeth would be, and in that moment, he knew Freud was his savior. The idea of mingling Oedipal themes in Victor's eccentric life came to him, and through a single actress, he exhibited Victor's lifelong yearning for his mother. The shared face highlighted the 2 great loves of Victor's life, blurring the line between obsession, affection, and creation. It was the death of his mother that fueled this insatiable urge in Victor to bring the dead back to life, and he sees a figure he has yearned for throughout his life in Elizabeth. Del Toro had always been fascinated by the thought of dual casting, believing that a single actor could add to the story's weight, and having seen Mia play both Pearl and Maxine in T. West's movies, he had full confidence in her range. The significance of red in the movie. Guillermo del Toro clarified that the colors played an important part in the storytelling and that every character was given a specific hue to enhance their personality. For instance, Victor's father and Harlander were blue and Victor was red. Red became synonymous with the life and trajectory of Victor Frankenstein, and Tamara, along with the cinematographer Dan Lawston, strategically used the shade to heighten the emotional depth of the film. According to Tamara, red was a metaphor for guilt, inheritance, and the color of the Frankenstein family's curse. Victor's entire childhood was filled with crimson hues. His mother was seen wearing a bright red dress and a netted hat, and even his home had the color in every corner, the furniture, the curtains, and everywhere else. Even the scene where his father soaked his bread in the blood of the meat highlighted the deliberate use of the hue. The color tied Victor to his mother, and as a grown man, he was the only one sporting it in the film. Whether it was his overwhelmingly bright blanket, the scarf, or the unmissable leather gloves, red and Victor became one, and it was this color that kept haunting him throughout the film and in his dreams. Interestingly, when Elizabeth entered his life, the color found a new home. Her red dress and the umbrella linked her to Victor's mother and gave the color a deeper meaning in his life. Del Toro directed Oscar Isaac in jokes. Given how profound and heartfelt Frankenstein is, it would be easy to assume that the filming process was equally intense and somber. But no, the director and Oscar allegedly had the time of their lives on set and tried to make the filming schedule as pleasant as possible. Del Toro and Oscar would often banter around to lighten the mood, and in an interview with Vanity Fair, Oscar Isaac stated that the best part about working with Guillermo was that he didn't try to keep the actor in some kind of evil dark zone to get into the character's shoes. Instead, he treated the process as a fun event and directed him in jokes. The two would often crack morbid gags to each other in Spanish to ensure that they didn't end up offending anyone who might not share the same humor as them. Isaac admitted that most of the jokes weren't translatable to English because they sounded awful in a different language. For instance, the unusual pairing of a mouse and a lion in an indecent situation. Yeah, basically Isaac had to picture himself as a mouse who was, doing it with a lion. Del Toro used Greek mythology in the film. In an unforgettable shot, we see the huge sculpture of Medusa, the Gorgon from Greek mythology. Everyone knows the story of Medusa, but still, here's a quick recap. Gorgons in Greek mythology are usually portrayed as female characters with snakes instead of hair. Medusa is the most well-known Gorgon, who was transformed into this monstrous form by the goddess Athena as a punishment. Medusa was Athena's priestess who broke her vow of chastity in Athena's temple, and as some sort of revenge, she was made into this hideous creature who turned anyone who looked at her into stone. The reason Del Toro used Medusa in Victor's lab was multifaceted. Firstly, she just fits the story. She was a tragic monster who was created, cursed by fate, and secondly, she symbolized the power of transmutation that Victor was so blindly seeking. While the former converted people into lifeless beings, Victor aimed at mastering life and death, playing God, which resulted in similar unfortunate consequences. Del Toro's artistic choice here overlaps strongly with who the monster was and who the creator was. Frankenstein could have been a trilogy. Del Toro initially played with the idea of making Frankenstein into a trilogy, with each part focusing on the three characters: Victor Frankenstein, the creature, and Captain Robert Walton. Del Toro viewed Mary Shelley's novel as a multi-perspective story and saw potential in every character. He considered giving all three standalone narratives that would reflect their personal journeys and psychological arcs. What we eventually saw was a single adaptation, but the filmmaker has often noted that during early development, he and his co-writers did consider following the trio structure and giving each character the screen time they deserved. However, as far as we know, the idea of a trilogy or follow-up film has not officially been greenlit for production. Mia Goth's costume linked her to the creature. As Victor's mother, Mia's costume was mostly made out of red, but as Elizabeth, the woman was given different hues to emphasize the various facets of her character. The costume designer, Kate Hawley, took Del Toro's comments to heart and knew she wouldn't be creating eye candy, but eye protein. Since Elizabeth was drawn to understanding insects, her wardrobe had to represent nature, and that's precisely why she appeared in a green Victorian gown. However, Del Toro wasn't just focusing on Elizabeth's connection to the scenic. By establishing her as an inherently curious and sensitive person, the dresses chosen for Mia's character were in colors that associated her with the creature as well. Del Toro said that Elizabeth stood for the natural world and the holy, just as the creature did, in contrast to Victor's bloody, sinful realm. The blue dress that Mia wore was inspired by X-rays, which were patterned into designs, and the ribbon bodice on her wedding dress and Hawley's homage to the Bride of Frankenstein. Moreover, the bandages were a direct visual link to the creature's getup. Hawley shared how she and a team of craftsmen worked across the globe, tinting and aging the costumes, embroidering, and putting their blood, sweat, and tears into every single thread woven for this film. Elordi turned photographer on the set to capture behind-the-scenes moments. Not only did Elordi deliver an impeccable performance and cement his status as a genuinely talented actor in the film industry, he also turned out to be a storehouse of hidden skills, including being an incredible photographer. He wandered around the set in between shots with camera in hand, documenting the process as closely as possible. He later took to social media and revealed bits and pieces of the filming by posting photographs from the set, offering a closer look at the creative process and the labor behind the year's most ambitious project. Elordi even included a few selfies in full creature makeup to keep everyone updated. Marvelous verdict! Alright guys, that's all for today. Honestly, an incredible amount of effort and preparation went into realizing Del Toro's lifelong ambition. He didn't resort to shortcuts or modern technology to ease this process, and insisted on a film crafted entirely by humans for humans. Thankfully, every person involved in the project gave it their all, and the result was nothing short of cinematic bliss. There are endless fascinating facts and anecdotes about how every shot was carefully planned and executed, and the team's candid interviews and talk show appearances practically ushered in a new age of Frankenstein on the internet. We're sure no one's complaining, because the more you learn, the deeper your connection with the film becomes. We've tried to encapsulate the essence of Del Toro's artistic vision, but frankly, it sits far too high on the pedestal to ever fully grasp. Here's hoping that this list of behind-the-scenes moments only heightens your curiosity and helps Frankenstein reach a milestone worthy of admiration. Let us know your favorite behind-the-scenes fact in the comments down below, and if you enjoyed this content, don't forget to leave a like and to subscribe to us if you haven't already. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay safe out there, and have a marvelous day.
Not something.